Jeremy McGrath, his 47th career victory.
He was the most winning rider in Supercross history. And
Jeremy McGrath didn't just win Supercross. He rewrote the rulebook. 7 titles, 72 main event wins. A style that changed how riders moved, dressed, and competed. But behind the glory was a kid from Southern California, late to motocross, but born for airtime. This is the story of how McGrath built a dynasty, walked away from the biggest team in racing, and changed the business and identity of Supercross. From nac-nacs to title streaks. From going independent to inspiring future GOATs. He didn't just dominate an era, he carved his number into the soul of the sport. Before the titles, the nac-nac, or the nickname The King, Jeremy McGrath was just another BMX rat in Southern California. But he wasn't just goofing off in parking lots. He was one of the top youth racers on factory support, already chasing air before he'd ever heard a 2-stroke scream. He raced everything from flat turns to dirt doubles, spending hours dialing manuals, bunny hops, and pack starts. It wasn't just fun, it was a foundation. BMX made him fearless in tight spaces. He didn't even touch a dirt bike until he was almost 15. Ancient in motocross years, where future champs are gate dropping at 5.
I didn't start racing until I was 14. For these days and the standards of today's racing is kind of late, really. I think it just worked for me, and I think you have a window, right? So you have a 10-year or 12-year window of pushing your body to the limit like that and being a professional and being on tour and just the stress and strain that it takes to do it. And I'm kind of lucky that I started late because then I was able to race until I was 30, 31.
McGrath was almost a freshman in high school, but his BMX instincts gave him something the others didn't: throttle timing, pump control, and a natural feel for jumping.
I did race BMX. I started BMX when I was probably 9 years old and ended up racing BMX until I was about 14. A friend of mine that raced BMX was racing motocross too.
His first race bike was a Yamaha YZ80 he got at 14. He used it to win his first motocross race at Paris Raceway, and from that day the rest was history. But what stood out wasn't his results. It was his posture, his balance, and the way he floated through rhythm sections. He rode with flow instead of force, and that made people look twice.
June of '86, I went to Paris Raceway, raced my first motocross race, won the beginner class, and back then they had split starts, so you had 2 gates.
By the late 80s, McGrath was running with Kawasaki's Team Green amateur program. He wasn't the most polished kid in the class, but his speed was climbing, and his riding presence was impossible to ignore. At Loretta Lynn's, Ponca, and Golden State Nationals, he became a regular top 5 threat. The fast kids were starting to hear his name. He wasn't pegged as the next prodigy, but something about him clicked. Spectators started pointing. He wasn't supposed to be the future, but momentum was building.
So when he turned pro, he was riding the 125 West Supercross class on a Kawasaki, and he did really well.
In 1991, he signed with Peak/Pro Circuit Honda, capturing the AMA Supercross 125 West title.
Well, I was hoping to step up. I went through that in practice, and only Brian, my teammate, was doing it, and it worked well for me in the main. I was gaining seconds on Emic, and everything worked out through that. I couldn't have done it without Honda, Pro Circuit, and Peak.
He didn't stop there. In 1992, he successfully defended it with a dominant performance. A kid with no elite amateur resume had just mowed down the factory pipeline. But not everyone was buying it. Coaches and insiders said he was too loose, too flashy, that his elbows out, relaxed style wouldn't hold up in the 250 class. To them, it looked lazy. To him, it was economy. He wasn't burning energy, he was saving it for the finish. McGrath didn't need to fit in. He was about to flip the whole sport on its head. By 1993, Jeremy McGrath had gone from a late bloomer to Honda's rising star. But no one expected what came next. In his first full year on the factory Honda 250 team, McGrath didn't just win. He took 10 mains and the title. And a new name echoing through every stadium tunnel, The King. While others fought the track, McGrath made it sing. He floated across rhythm sections, rode with relaxed precision, and made stadiums feel electric. And fans felt that. Over the next 3 seasons, McGrath locked in 4 straight Supercross titles. He dominated on every coast, every surface, every gate drop, and he did it while breaking every visual expectation the sport had. The nac-nac, a trick pulled straight from BMX, became his signature move. He first threw it out mid-race not to show off, just because it felt right. But it became a phenomenon. It didn't shave time, it rewired imaginations. Soon, other riders were copying it. The crowd started holding their breath for it.
Well, a lot of people were razzing me about fading the last 2 weeks. You know, who's to say if it's going to happen again? I feel that I'm in shape. You know, I feel the only thing that was holding me back was arm pump.
Supercross had never seen flair like this, and it wasn't just the riding. McGrath's gear choices, old Fox kits, custom colorways, bright helmets, stood out under stadium lights. He looked like a showman, he rode like a champion, and he was becoming a household name. Behind the scenes, he started influencing how bikes were being built. His team fine-tuned suspension setups around his jumping rhythm, dialing in rebound and power delivery to match the way he flowed through rhythm sections with less effort and more precision. Honda's engineers began prioritizing SX geometry and low-end power delivery, all tailored to the way McGrath attacked the track. For the first time, Supercross wasn't just a race series, it was a show, and McGrath was the headliner.
That thought they were the champions or thought they were a top guy, they would have these huge egos, and Jeremy had, his ego in check and just a normal kid. He was the guy that brought our sport, Supercross, motocross, to the mainstream.
TV ratings climbed, stadium crowds grew, action sports were on the rise, and Jeremy McGrath was right at the center of it. ESPN featured him, toy companies called. For a generation of kids, he wasn't just a racer, he was motocross. But dominance brings pressure. And not everyone loved the flash and flair he brought with him. Some purists started questioning whether it was still about grit, or if it was all just performance. McGrath didn't care. He kept winning. But behind the podium smiles, the tension was starting to build. Winning didn't get easier after that first title. It got heavier. By the mid-90s, Jeremy McGrath was the face of Supercross. Every gate drop came with expectations. From fans, from Honda, and from himself. He wasn't just expected to win, he was expected to crush everyone. Anything less was seen as failure, and while McGrath kept delivering, the pack behind him was sharpening up. Jeff Emig, Mike LaRocco, and Ezra Lusk weren't just fast, they were hungry. Emig in particular made it personal. He wasn't there to impress anyone, he just wanted to beat McGrath. And in 1996, he nearly did. But McGrath held him off, winning his fourth straight Supercross title and holding on to the crown.
I always like to say that's the night I made Emig famous. He was really arrogant, I thought, really cocky, and I freaking hated that. I'm like, no way, dude. I can't stand that someone doesn't give me respect. Not that I command respect, but don't disrespect,
Yeah.
From the outside, it looked like business as usual. Behind the scenes, it wasn't. McGrath's relationship with Honda was starting to fray. What had once been the perfect pairing, star rider, dominant machine, elite team, was turning rigid. Honda had rules, expectations, marketing strategies. McGrath had instincts. He trusted what he felt on the bike, not what the test data said. And the deeper he got into his prime, the more he wanted control over how he trained, tested, and raced. He respected the brand, but he'd earned the right to trust his gut. That didn't sit well with Honda. They had built their program on structure and tradition. McGrath wanted flexibility, more input, more personal freedom. By the end of the '96 season, tension had replaced trust. And then he did the unthinkable. He walked.
When I left Honda that year to go ride to Suzuki, I would have ride anything to get off that Honda.
Yeah.
And it was unfortunate because I have so many good feelings and good memories about Honda. But that was the wrong thing to do to me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, dude, I'm winning every race here. I'm like, why are you fixing the,
And now you
trying
want
to
me
change
to ride
this?
a lamppost.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, when I started riding that bike in the off season, it was like I forgot how to ride. Scars on my chin. It jacked me up several times.
In 1997, Jeremy McGrath, the most dominant Supercross rider the sport had ever seen, left factory Honda. No contract dispute, no career-ending injury, just a decision to bet on himself. That year, he signed with Suzuki. A year later, he moved to Larry Brooks's Chaparral Yamaha program, and the wins came flooding back. The entire industry was stunned. Leaving Honda in its prime was like Jordan quitting the Bulls mid-dynasty. It wasn't just about racing, it was about control, identity, and ownership. McGrath wasn't running from competition. He was running towards something else. But that path wouldn't be easy. He just walked away from the most powerful bike, team, and support system in motocross.
He did the Suzuki thing, 97, back to Chaparral. And then we worked with him with that. It's kind of cool.
The spotlight didn't fade. The expectations didn't drop. And now, every rival smelled blood. If McGrath was ever going to fall, this was the moment. When Jeremy McGrath left Honda, most people thought he'd made a mistake. He had just walked away from the most dominant team in motocross, a machine that churned out championships, and no one believed he could keep winning without them. The whispers started immediately. Wrong move, wrong bike, wrong time. But McGrath didn't flinch. By 2000, McGrath had rebuilt his dominance with Chaparral Yamaha. 3 straight titles after his brief 1997 stint with Suzuki. That run ended with his 7th Supercross crown. He opened 2001 on fire, winning Anaheim 1 and Anaheim 2 before Ricky Carmichael reeled off a historic streak. Rather than fade with the changing tide, McGrath doubled down on doing things his way. In 2001, he launched McGrath Racing, a privately run Supercross team with Yamaha support. It wasn't just a decal change. His rig, his pit setup, and even his testing schedule felt different from the factory norm. He built a program that reflected him, not a corporate blueprint. They said it would fail. McGrath proved it could win. That model helped set the standard. It opened the door for future rider-run teams like Chad Reed's 2-2 Motorsports, and laid the groundwork for modern setups that balance factory support with athlete control.
It inspired guys like James. It inspired guys like Chad Reed. I mean, Chad Reed, his style looks exactly how I used to race.
Even off the track, his moves were intentional. He leaned into lifestyle branding, signed with companies that fit his image, and stayed visible without selling out. Fans saw him not just as a champion, but as someone rewriting the rules for how a racer could run their career. He let the racing speak, and it said everything. By the early 2000s, Jeremy McGrath wasn't just a racer, he was a system. And that system was built to outlast the usual win-then-fade cycle. The pressure to dominate had been replaced by something else, something more dangerous: control, confidence, and the power to shape what came next. McGrath wasn't just surviving without Honda, he was thriving without them. By the early 2000s, McGrath had nothing left to prove on the track. 7 Supercross titles, 72 main event wins. The resume was set in stone. But that didn't mean he was done shaping the sport. The action sports world was exploding. The X Games had moved from curiosity to cultural anchor. Freestyle motocross was stealing TV time from traditional racing. Sponsors were starting to look beyond lap charts. They wanted identity, influence, and crossover appeal. McGrath saw it coming before most racers did. He wasn't a full-time freestyler, but his presence was everywhere. He even stepped into the spotlight at the X Games, winning step-up gold in 2004, a Supermoto bronze that same year, a Supermoto silver in 2005, and a step-up silver in 2006. He also threw down at exhibition runs during major Supercross rounds, giving fans that signature McGrath style even when points weren't on the line. Then came something completely his own.
I mean, it was cool. I was 27 years old, 28 years old, 30 years old. Then X Games comes along. Let's try step up. Let's go see if we can do that. It was kind of what I did as a kid, and we were always messing around, jumping big jumps anyways with the movies Steel Roots back in the day, and then when Krusty came out and all that. I mean, we were living the lifestyle. From what most people saw, it was only really track riding. I enjoy all of it, right? So that's the X Games came with a step up, got a gold there, tried to get gold several times, but finally got it done.
The Jeremy McGrath Invitational. In October 2006, McGrath staged a one-off 2-night event at the Home Depot Center in California.
Pack Creative is absolutely right. Who would have thought of putting freestyle motocross ramps on a supercross track? Well, Jeremy McGrath, of course. Check it out. The 70-foot huck. There's nowhere to go. There's no escape. You got to hit the ramp.
Kevin Windham swept both nights. It was his take on what a supercross race could be. Big purse, hand-picked riders, and a track built for racing and showmanship. McGrath was in control of every detail, from the location, to the course design, to the rider invitations. The event felt different because it was different. Athletes wanted to be there, fans could feel it, and brands took notes. Even outside the stadium, his influence was clear. In the early 2000s, McGrath's bold, no-fear kits, distinctive helmet designs, and effortless cool set the tone for what freestyle and race riders alike would embrace as the sport's image evolved. Riders copied his look, borrowed his style, and carried his showmanship into their own careers. He also showed sponsors a new way forward, backing the rider as much as the team. Without ever needing to pitch the idea, McGrath embodied the shift toward athlete-driven branding. Even now, both racers and freestylers point back to that early 2000s era as a turning point. the moment motocross became more than just checkered flags and trophies. For McGrath, it was never about stepping away. It was about stepping wide, making space for the sport to grow without losing touch with where it came from. By 2005, Jeremy McGrath had already shifted into legend territory, but then something unexpected happened. He lined back up for Supercross. After 2 full seasons away from the series, McGrath returned for a select schedule in 2005 and 2006. It wasn't a farewell lap or a marketing stunt. He simply missed racing. He was in his mid-30s, older than most of the field, but he could still grab a hole shot, still time the rhythm lanes. Anaheim crowds roared when the King returned to the gate, and he delivered with heat wins and multiple top 5 finishes. For fans, it was surreal.
I mean, I'm back because I missed it, which is the most important. I mean, I still have the passion and the love for the sport, and I enjoy it. It's what I do.
The King was back, but not to chase a championship. He was there for the rush, the crowd, and the connection. When the 2006 season wrapped, McGrath didn't drift away. He just shifted gears, literally. That's when he launched Jeremy McGrath Motorsports and committed to the off-road truck world. He started with select core events in 2007 to 2008, then became a regular in Laura's Pro 2 competition in the 2010s. By 2017, he won the Laura's Pro 2 championship, proving once again that his racing instincts translated anywhere there was dirt and throttle. McGrath didn't just lend his name to a truck and pose for photos. He tested, he tuned, he lined up against the best, and he made it look like a natural extension of his motocross career. The same timing and throttle control that helped him dominate stadium tracks worked just as well in short course and desert racing. Between truck events, McGrath stayed visible in moto, hitting brand appearances, leading riding schools, mentoring younger riders, and still turning laps for fun. He didn't need the spotlight, but he never left the scene. And the ego? It never took over. McGrath knew what it meant to be the guy in his prime. Now he was the guy who used to be that guy, and he wore it well. By this point, Ricky Carmichael had taken over as the sport's dominant force, but it didn't erase what McGrath built. It only made his era feel even more untouchable. Jeremy McGrath didn't disappear. He evolved. He stepped back from the title chase, but not from moto, not from the fans, not from the community that still calls him the King. McGrath eventually shifted into a new role with Kawasaki, the brand that first backed him during his Team Green amateur days. In late 2014, he officially became a Kawasaki brand ambassador, marking a full circle return to the company where his motocross journey began.
Now I've been with Cowie. I mean, I started my career on Cowies.
Yeah.
I won my first Supercross on a Cowie. I was Team Green for a couple years there. And then when it came time to go to my pro career, they had other guys going to Team Green, and I went to the Pro Circuit Honda team. So in a way, when I signed with Cowie again, Monster was part of it.
Yeah.
It just everything made sense to go do something with Cowie and do this ambassadorship with Cowie. And I'll tell you what, man, it's been so fun.
He's been a featured face in Kawasaki's Science of Supercross video series, breaking down riding technique, mental prep, and how the sport has evolved for a new generation of fans and riders. McGrath has also kept a competitive edge. In 2025, he won the Pro Stock NA UTV class at King of the Hammers, finishing 19th overall. A legit result against a stacked field, proving he's still in it for more than nostalgia laps. Today, you can still spot his number and influence on tracks across the country.
Been part of the side-by-side program with the KRX, and my daughters are driving side-by-sides now, and we take the KRX and we go race King of the Hammers, and we do these crazy off-road events and stuff, and I'm just so appreciative of the opportunity. But we also...
From kids in replica gear to pros like Ken Roxon and Jet Lawrence building brands around personal style and independence. The mindset that a rider could control their own image and career, that was cemented in the McGrath era.
The era of, say, Chad Reed, Ricky, Kevin Windham, those guys, there's a hell of a lot of them that grew up and, remember we used to have VHS, so they watched videos, reruns of Jeremy racing Supercross.
But perhaps the most meaningful part of his legacy now lives at home. McGrath's daughter Rowan has joined him on the off-road circuit, competing in UTV events and building her own racing experience alongside her dad.
It's so much fun being in a family that does all these races and cars and everything other than a normal 14-year-old girl likes. It's a lot of fun.
You can see it in his eyes every time the flag drops and she hits the course. It's not about passing the torch, it's about passing down the feeling. For Jeremy, there's no pressure for her to become the next champion. No Instagram hype, just long days at the track, real joy, and a father remembering how it all began. So why does Jeremy McGrath still matter? Because his name still gets shouted over fences at local tracks. Because his number still gets printed on replica jerseys. Because the way he rode changed how we see the sport. And the way he lives now reminds us why we love it. He wasn't just the king of Supercross, he was the spark, and the sport's still burning. So tell us, what's your McGrath moment? That race, that pass, that photo you had on your wall? Drop it in the comments. And if you're still watching, you're the reason we tell these stories. Hit that next video and ride with us through another Legends chapter. Thanks for watching and stay wicked.